Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Playhouse Curtain. I'm Michael Rader, producing artistic director of the Cape Playhouse. And man, tonight we have such an incredible guest joining us. Jefferson May has had a truly remarkable career. His Broadway credits include Oslo, A Gentleman's Guide for Love and Murder, for which he was nominated for a Tony Award, The Best Man, I Am My Own Wife, for which he won a Tony Award, Pygmalion, Journey's End, and Of Thee I Sing. And his film and television credits include Perry Mason, Westworld, The Blacklist, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Mildred Pierce, Law and Order, Nurse Jackie. I could go on and on and on. And he has, for his incredible performances, he has won Tony, Lucille Ortel, Drama Desk's, Obies, Outer Critics Circle, Helen Hayes, and Drama League Awards, among so many others. Jefferson is currently starring as Scrooge and about 50 other roles in Christmas Carol, which we are so thrilled to be streaming on our website through January 3rd. And the New York Times just named the show as a must-watch critics pick. So the show is doing incredibly well. And please welcome now to our Behind the Playhouse Curtain, Mr. Jefferson May. Hey, Jefferson.
Hello. So good to see you.
You too. Did I get most of that right? I hope so.
Yes, absolutely. It was exhausting, but I think it was all pretty much correct. Thank you.
Well, I just got a chance over the week to watch this production, and man, are you incredible. It is, it's really astonishing what you and Michael and the creative team have created. And so first of all, just congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, the reviews are starting to come in. Like I said, the New York Times has called you a tour de force, that you're astonishing. The LA Times has said there's no greater or better gift this holiday season. That's not a bad way to start December, I would say.
Well, they've been most charitable. That's a lovely gift, and thank you for the gift of your participation.
Well,
in our venture.
This is truly an honor that we can offer this to our community and to our patrons. And man, I mean, the pandemic, I'm sure we can all agree, has been so challenging. And the fact that families can't gather this year as they normally do, you know, I'm actually gifting this production to family members and colleagues. And it's so wonderful to be able to say,
wonderful,
let's watch it together remotely. And you know, we can't all go to the theater, but you know, it was interesting too, watching it for the first time for me in almost a year. I felt like I was watching, like sitting in a theater and watching theater. It feels, while it's filmed incredibly well and beautifully, it still gives you the flair of being in watching a piece of theater and being in a theater. And that was wonderful. That was wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's very gratifying to hear, because that was indeed our aim, to give the audience the feeling that they were sitting up on stage with us at some point.
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful. And what a I mean, just a perfect show. I'm curious. I love Christmas. I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of year. And I've always loved A Christmas Carol. I mean, growing up as a performer, you know, it's one of those things that I feel like we all do at some point, or a lot of us do at some point.
Except for me.
Really?
I've gone through my entire career never having been cast in any production of Christmas Carol anywhere, which is really hard to do, I think. As a regional theater actor,
sure,
I somehow miss my opportunities to do it ourselves.
Well, and
give me a stab at it.
Right, and instead of having to focus on playing just one of the roles, you just got to do the whole thing. You got to play everybody. Right? So did you? Well, go ahead.
I too share your love for this story, and was exposed to it by my dear beloved, no longer with us parents, sometime in the late 1970s, in which our family television, a little portable black and white, fell off the table. The dog and cat were chasing each other, got hopelessly tangled in the cord, and it smashed on the floor one winter evening. So we were gathered there to watch Animal Kingdom, and that was no longer an option. So my father pulled down Charles Dickens's a collection of his Christmas books, and started reading A Christmas Carol aloud to us, three captive children on the sofa, and he and my mother would pass it back and forth, and they read the entire unexpurgated manuscript, which takes about 3 hours. And we were transfixed. I was traumatized and delighted in equal measure. And I distinctly remember my father's wonderful, humane, sort of detached narrative voice. And then my mother would transmogrify before my eyes into every character. She would become Ebenezer Scrooge, Marley's ghost, Bob Cratchit, Belinda Cratchit, Tiny Tim. And it was amazing to see this woman I thought I knew so well transform utterly before my eyes. So I think in many ways that was a seminal moment for me. In many ways, an introduction to the miracle of theater. A great story, wonderful performers, and a rapt audience. And I think I fell in love. So it has such personal weight for me on so many levels.
That's beautiful. So I was going to ask you if Christmas Carol found you or you found Christmas Carol, and it sounds like Christmas Carol found you through your parents, and I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I hear their voices on stage with me every time I do it. I've shamelessly stolen line readings from both my parents, and but they're no longer with us, as I said, and it's so wonderful to be on stage with them. Every time that I perform this extraordinary story.
Sure. You obviously have a history of doing incredibly well, tackling roles where you play multiple characters. I think in I Am My Own Wife, you played, I wouldn't even remember how many. And Gentleman's Guide, multiple roles. Christmas Carol, I think like 50 different characters. Is that something that it attracts you, that you're attracted to, or that it just sort of developed naturally? Or why do you think you're able to handle that very complex type of character so well?
I think a lot of actors share that pathology, if you will. I mean, I always think of Bob in A Midsummer Night's Dream and how he's constantly raising his hand to his fellow players and to Peter Quince, the director playwright, saying, "Oh, I can play Thisbe too. Oh, let me play the lion. Let me roar too. I can be the Pyramus and the moon and everything." So I think we as actors, want to play all the parts. It's what made us become actors in the first place. And there's also a special rush in telling a complete story from the beginning to the end and having that sort of narrative control, because all actors at bottom are storytellers. So it's everything I love about the theater all at once, doing a one-person show. Although I kind of had an antipathy towards them originally. I had no interest, because the joy of theater is collectively telling a story and playing with other people and being surprised by other people and crafting something with other people on stage every night in front of an audience. So maybe I was kind of ambushed by it with I Am My Own Wife back early in this century. That was my first sort of foray into one-person performance. But I've certainly enjoyed these two opportunities I've had to do it. Gentleman's Guide was different. I was playing 9 characters of the same family in a more or less conventional musical with a wonderful cast surrounding me.
It was incredible. It was incredible. I'm curious, when you started out on this process, creating this adaptation of A Christmas Carol, did you I know you adapted this with your wife and with Michael Arden, the director. Did you initially jump off the cliff and say, I'm going to do this as a one-person show, or was the process a bit different? How did you initially conquer the adaptation?
Yes, actually, this has been bubbling back of my mind since the last century, of doing a one-person Christmas Carol, or at least reading aloud to an audience. But then we were walking our dog to the La Brea tar pits, as one does in Los Angeles, and we ran into Matt Shackman, the artistic director of the Gap Theater, and he was talking to me about something. He said, "Do you have anything, you're thinking about doing?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, Christmas Carol, we've been sort of tinkering around with that." And he said, "Great, let's do it." And so I had the better part of a year to work on this adaptation with Susan Lyons, and more importantly, to memorize it. And we worked from Charles Dickens's own very brutal cut
Mm.
of his novella.
Mhm.
And he was an actor himself, and a very good one. And he was particularly drawn to one-person shows. There
Mm.
was this early 19th century actor called Charles Matthews, who would do Monopoly logs, as he called them, in which he would do entire plays and play the entire cast. Dickens was obsessed with him and memorized a lot of his material
Mm.
and performed it himself, for family and friends. And so we worked from Dickens's own adaptation, and he very quickly saw the dramatic potential in A Christmas Carol, and I think performed it for a bunch of coal miners in Birmingham in 1853, and the 3 hours, and they loved it. So we reduced it, and then toured Great Britain and the United States twice in the middle of the 19th century, performing A Christmas
Mhm.
Carol to packed houses. So we thought he must have known what he was about, and so we used his version, took a few things away from it, added a few things that we loved from the unexpurgated manuscript, and then we're introduced to Michael Arden. I've admired his work, but Matt Sheckman made a formal introduction, and we quickly realized that both of us loved this story from a very early age. Tiny Tim was his first role in professional theater, and then he did numerous productions and sort of worked his way up from young Scrooge to the narrator most recently. So he loved Christmas Carol. So it was just one of those wonderful rare instances where there's this confluence of circumstances and personalities.
I'd love to chat with you about your process with Michael, because there was one moment at the very beginning of the piece. I think it was when Marley first appears, and you are, as Scrooge, sort of on the floor. And I think you're on the floor, at least that's what's in my mind. And you look one way, and the lighting design is so perfect because it hits your
Yes.
face. I think it's red, and you're Scrooge, and then you just turn slightly, and you assume Marley, and the lights hit you in a different way. Man, that moment was astonishing. And I'm curious how much of that developed for you in the rehearsal room, how much of that developed for you during the tech process. Because that moment there was such subtlety in that moment, and also incredible collaboration with the design, that it just was one of those moments. And it was so early on that it made immediately me think, wow, this is exceptional. So how were moments like that developed?
Well, that was the genius of Ben Stainton too, because that beautifully focused light. Yeah, Marley as the ghost would sort of enter a green realm, and then Scrooge would enter the warmth, the human warmth of the firelight, just through a simple just movement of my head and upper torso, really. And but it came from an idea I had of Scrooge being possessed. It's the story of this intractable, irredeemable miser who goes home one night, Christmas Eve, and experiences this extraordinary dark night of the soul where he is possessed by his own past, memories of his own past, visions of the present, and fearful imaginings of the future. So it's kind of a Dybbuk, moment where he is possessed by the ghost of his dead partner and his ghost of Christmas past, etc. So it made sense that the transformation would all happen within Scrooge's own body. So that was an idea that was pretty much there from the get-go, and then we further experimented with it physically in rehearsal.
I imagine that creating something like this, the rehearsal process, the development process for you as an actor, where you're exploring how all of these characters come together and the text comes together, must be just incredibly daunting. Was there anything specifically about this process of A Christmas Carol that surprised you about any of the development or the character work, or anything that was particularly challenging for you, or I don't know, maybe less challenging than you thought it would be?
No, it was a big challenge, and the biggest challenge I think was committing it all to memory. I spent a good part of the summer doing that, but wandering around where I live here in Los Angeles, muttering like a madman, people backing away from me on the street. Right. I mean, one silver lining to COVID is we all are masked, so I can go out and mutter with impunity. Nobody, it doesn't look like aberrant behavior. But yes, shortly after we finished the rough draft or adaptation, I started putting it into my head and, more importantly, into my body. And then on the first day of rehearsal, I said, "May I just perform it? I'm going to do the whole show for you, off book, and then we'll see what we have, and then start shaping it and exploring ideas that occur to us throughout the process." And that's pretty much the way we work, and it's the way I want to work forever now. I mean, a lot of actors say, "No, I don't want to commit anything to memory because I want to be open but I think it is essential that we come into rehearsal on the first day knowing it backwards and forwards, and then we can forget it again, as we work on it and revisit and reimagine. But just to have the words under control and in our heads and in our hearts and in our bodies, I think it shaves off like easily 3 weeks of rehearsal, and then you can really get down to the work of building a play.
Sure.
I think we have a tendency, I know I did, of sort of hiding behind the script for a longer than that is necessary. But there's something wonderful about just leaping off that cliff into the first rehearsal, knowing your lines pretty much. Scary, yes, but useful.
Was that something you had done with, say, for I Am My Own Wife? Had you done that? Had you come into the process before like that, completely off book, or was this something you sort of discovered this time?
I've done it before with plays. I Am My Own Wife was different because I was involved from that before a word had been put down on paper. So new scenes would arrive daily, and then I would stay up at night trying to commit them to memory. There was one time early on, I remember in I Am My Own Wife, in previews of its debut, I got a new scene in Act 2 with a corps of international reporters that were bombarding the main character, Charlotte von Malsdorf, with questions. And they were all from Doug Wright, the playwright, the night before said, "What other accents do you do?" So he said there was, an Englishman and a German and a Frenchman and an Indian man. And so I did it, and I went up sky high. But then one of the other characters in the scene that I was playing bailed me out, knew the lines that this other character was drawing on. So it was a strange moment in which I was rescued by myself as another character on stage when another character that I was playing went up on his lines. And it pretty much did my head in,
Amazing. When you were working on A Christmas Carol, I wonder if you had any moments like that. I can imagine that you filmed this in a theater in New York, a several thousand seat theater that was essentially empty, besides the staff that was there to film it and the creative teams. No audience. How did that affect you as a performer? You walk out on stage to deliver this tour de force, massive production, and you get to moments when normally you would have a reaction from an audience or there'd be energy coming at you from the audience, and it's not there. Did that affect you? Did you notice that, or did you feel that at all? Or are you so deeply involved in moving the show forward that it's not even something that you notice?
Yes, I suppose it was something I didn't notice. I think I had the great good fortune of having done essentially this performance, this staging of it before live, living, breathing, laughing, gasping audiences at the Geffen Theater in Los Angeles. So I sort of had the memory of that and what they responded to. So I was sort of, appropriately enough, performing for a ghost audience in some ways. And I think, as I mentioned earlier to you, before the program started, there was a certain poignancy in doing it for this vast, cavernous, empty vaudeville house in the north of Manhattan, and made me think of all the empty theaters across the country during COVID, and all the 3,293 empty seats stood in for me of all the people that can no longer go to the theater, all the souls we've lost. And Michael very smartly and very compassionately acknowledged in the filming of it the emptiness of the theater at some points, and it is indeed dedicated to the lives lost from COVID-19 epidemic at the end, with the end credits. So
well,
it serves as this sort of document of the strange times in which we live and how difficult it's been for the theater, because we've lost what, 80% of box office revenue at least, and 0.7 million arts workers are unemployed now. So tough times.
It is, but what a great honor I would add for you to be able to be able to showcase this right now, and for this to be, it warms my heart thinking of how many families hopefully this will brighten their holiday celebrations. And
I hope so.
Yeah, it's such a, and I hope for years to come too that this can be a staple and that this production can live on. It's so incredibly well done. I hope that you and Michael and Hunter and the entire team just feel so proud of this, because it's exceptional. And as a as a producer of a regional theater, it's wonderful that we're able to share this with our team, because with our audience, with our community, and to be able to bring someone like you into their living rooms is such an honor. So I would offer thanks to you as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. The pleasure and honors is mine. It's a lovely thing to be able to do, and we were also happy to do it in this empty theater. We had the best New York stage crew you could imagine, and they were so excited to be back at work doing what we love best.
Was that hard to step away at the end when you had to, last day of filming, wrap? Usually, you've spent all this time working on something like this, and then it lives on for as long as the show runs or as long as you remain in the show. It must have been truly unique to spend the time developing this and then walk away from it so quickly.
Yes, we were rehearsing it for about 4 weeks downtown at a theater, and then we had this performance was shot over the course of one day. I took a couple of runs at it. The cameras were repositioned, and then it was edited together. But we spent another few days doing interesting shots, some of them taking place in the theater itself, in Steadicam, on stage with me, and a reverse of the audience. And so we're also making a film version of it. This was a more or less a performance capture. But there's also going to be a film made of it, which is going to exploit more sort of filmic effects. And I'm very curious to see how that will turn out. And I think that might come out next year in some form or another. But of course, I just cannot wait to get back into a theater and do this for a live audience, because I think that's where it just truly sings for me, and I get the wonderful interplay with an audience and their energy and all of that.
Sure. Well, Jefferson, we are so thankful that while you can't be in a theater right now with an audience, and our patrons can't be in a theater with a group of actors and seeing something, that we're able to bridge that gap right now. And it's truly an honor to have you as part of this, and that we're able to bring this production to our community. And we thank you, and I thank you. And hopefully we'll get you to the Playhouse sometime very soon. But until then,
that would be lovely.
Yeah, we would love that. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday. And from our community to you in Los Angeles, we send you our best and much, much more success with this production. It's incredible. And I'm so excited that our community gets to see it this year. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and God bless us, everyone.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us tonight for Behind the Playhouse Curtain. If you haven't already seen A Christmas Carol, drop what you're doing, and you can get tickets on our website right now. It's an astonishing production. It makes a perfect gift this holiday season. The reviews are in, and it's a New York Times critic pick. The LA Times is raving. They're all raving about this incredible production, and I'm sure you will too. So go to our website, grab your tickets while you still can, and be sure to join us next week when another guest joins us for Behind the Playhouse Curtain. Until then, I wish you a very, very happy and healthy week. Take care.